The message came while I was standing in my parents' kitchen, holding a grocery bag I had just paid for. My mother didn't lower her voice. "You've changed," she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "You think money makes you better." My father kept scrolling on his phone. The refrigerator hummed. The smell of fried onions lingered in the air. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked once, then again. My phone vibrated. I looked down. "You're not family anymore." She had texted it while I was still in the house. I felt everyone's eyes on me. My aunt sat at the table, pretending not to listen. My cousins stared at the floor. I didn't defend myself. I placed the grocery bag on the counter, and I walked out quietly. What do you say when the word family is used like a door slamming shut? The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Not because I was motivated, because my body had decided sleep was a luxury I no longer deserved. My apartment was still dim, the kind of early gray where the windows look fogged even when they are clean. I stood barefoot on the cold tile and stared at my phone on the counter like it might bite me. No new messages, no good morning, no follow-up, just that one line from my mother sitting in my notifications like a bruise. I made coffee I didn't want. The machine gurgled and clicked, louder than usual in the silence. I drank 2 sips, then set the mug down and opened my laptop. It was an ordinary Tuesday. Bills, emails, a half-finished to-do list. But my eyes kept drifting to one tab I had left open on purpose. A mortgage portal. Not mine. Theirs. 2 years earlier, my parents had asked me to co-sign on a small property purchase. Not a mansion, not a vacation home, a plain townhouse in a decent neighborhood. My mother called it security. "We're getting older," she said. "What if something happens? You're our only safety." I wasn't their only child, but I was the only one with a stable income. My brother always had a plan. My sister always had a situation. I was the one who showed up on time and paid things without being asked twice. At the signing, the escrow officer had looked at me over her glasses. "Are you sure you understand what this means?" she asked. I nodded like someone who wasn't afraid. My parents smiled like I was doing something noble. After that, it became normal. The little reminders, the casual expectations. "Just cover this month? It's tight. You know we would do the same for you. You don't want us to lose the house, do you?" I had believed them. Or maybe I had believed the version of myself that still wanted to be a good daughter. And I was good. I was consistent. I was careful. The payments came out of my account every month like clockwork. Even when my father bought a new phone. Even when my mother took weekend trips with her friends and posted photos with captions like, "Blessed." I never threw it back at them. I never asked for gratitude, because the truth was, I didn't want gratitude. I wanted belonging. That morning, I clicked into the escrow section without thinking. It was a habit now, like checking the weather. And that's when I saw it. Status. Frozen for a second, my brain refused to translate it. Frozen meant error, glitch, temporary. But then another line loaded beneath it. By access revoked, my fingers hovered over the trackpad. My heart did that slow, heavy drop like an elevator cable snapping. Revoked from what? From the portal? From the loan? From the thing I had been paying for with my own name attached to it? I refreshed the page once, then again. Same message. I sat back, staring at the screen, trying to remember the last time I had logged in. Last week. I had checked the balance after my mother called me sweetheart and asked if I could help out just a little more because the HOA fees were increasing. I had sent the money. No hesitation. And now, access revoked. I reached for my phone. My hands were calm, but my throat wasn't. It felt tight, like I had swallowed a stone. I didn't call my mother. Not yet. Instead, I called the bank. A recorded voice welcomed me like I was just another number in a queue. When a representative finally answered, she sounded polite in the way people sound when they are trained to be polite. "Can I have your full name?" I gave it. She paused. Then her tone changed slightly, like she had opened the wrong file and didn't want to admit it. "Ma'am, I see there was a change to the account permissions last night." Last night, while I was walking out of my parents' kitchen. "What kind of change?" I asked. Another pause. "The primary borrower requested removal of secondary access," she said carefully. "Your login was disabled." Primary borrower. My mother. I let that sit between us for a moment. "So, I'm still on the loan," I said, keeping my voice even. "But I can't see anything." "I can confirm you are still listed," she replied, "but you no longer have online access." My stomach turned, slow and cold. "Is escrow actually frozen?" I asked. This time she didn't hesitate. "Yes," she said. "There was a hold placed due to verification issues. Someone needs to contact our escrow department today." Someone, not me, apparently. I thanked her because that is what I do when I'm trying not to fall apart. I ended the call and sat there in the quiet, listening to my refrigerator hum the way it always did. My phone buzzed again, a voicemail notification. Not from my mother, not from the bank, from an unknown number, with a law firm name in the transcription preview. My thumb hovered over it, and I realized I was holding my breath. Why would their attorney be calling me? I didn't open the voicemail right away. Instead, I placed my phone face down on the table and walked to the window. Outside, a delivery truck idled at the curb. A man carried boxes up the stairs across the street. Life was moving forward for everyone else. Inside my apartment, time felt paused. How quickly can a person rewrite a story and expect you to keep reading it? I picked up the phone and pressed play. A measured male voice filled the room. "Good morning. This is Daniel Harper from Harper & Lowe. We represent Mr. and Mrs. Carter regarding the townhouse property. We need to discuss an urgent matter related to escrow and co-borrower obligations. Please return our call as soon as possible." The message ended without warmth. No accusations, no explanations. Just obligations. I replayed that word in my head. Obligations. When I co-signed, my mother had called it a family promise. My father said it was temporary support. No one used legal language at the dinner table. Now suddenly it was formal, official, urgent. I opened my laptop again and searched through old emails. The original documents were still there. PDF attachments with careful signatures. My name beside theirs, neat and permanent. I remembered the day we celebrated after closing. My mother brought a cake that said New Beginnings. My father toasted with sparkling cider. They insisted on taking photos of me holding the house key like it was my achievement too. "Look at our daughter," my mother had said proudly, "always taking care of us." It had sounded sweet at the time. Now it felt like evidence. Small things began rearranging themselves in my memory. The way my mother insisted on being listed as primary borrower for convenience. The way she discouraged me from asking too many questions about property taxes. The way she once said, casually, "It's easier if you don't worry about the paperwork. You're busy." Busy. I had been busy earning the money that kept the loan current. Last month, when I mentioned reviewing the statements together, she changed the subject. "You don't trust us?" she asked softly. The room had gone quiet then, too. I remember apologizing. Why had I apologized? Have you ever noticed how guilt can be handed to you like a wrapped gift, and you thank the person for it? I clicked back into the mortgage portal, even though access was revoked. The error page stared back at me. I decided to call the escrow department directly. After 3 transfers and a wait that felt longer than it was, another representative confirmed the hold. "There was a request to adjust beneficiary designation tied to the property," she explained. "Adjust how?" I asked. "I'm not authorized to provide specifics without account clearance," she replied, but the hold was triggered by documentation inconsistencies. Documentation inconsistencies. I wrote it down. Each phrase felt like a puzzle piece I wasn't meant to see. By noon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mother. Not a call, a text. "You need to stop contacting the bank. It makes things complicated." I stared at it. I hadn't told her I called. How did she know? Another message followed. "If you cared about us, you'd trust the process." Trust. That word again. I typed a response, then erased it, then typed again. Finally, I sent one line. What exactly did you change? 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then disappeared. No reply. Instead, my phone rang, the same unknown law firm number. I let it go to voicemail this time. The silence afterward felt heavier than the call itself. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. Something had been filed. Something had been altered. And I had been removed from access but not responsibility. That wasn't an accident. That was deliberate. The question wasn't whether they had changed something. The question was why now? Why the same night she told me I wasn't family? By late afternoon, the pattern stopped feeling abstract. It started feeling intentional. I opened my banking app and scrolled through the last 12 months of transfers. Every payment to the mortgage company was there, consistent and on time. My account, my salary, my name. But when I checked the joint utility account tied to the townhouse, something else stood out. Late fees, 2 months in a row, small amounts, but enough to trigger notices. Not once had my mother mentioned being behind. Not once had she said they were struggling. Instead, she posted photos from a weekend wine tour 3 weeks ago. Finally relaxing, the caption read. Relaxing. I zoomed in on one of the pictures. My father was holding a glass of red wine. My mother's hair was freshly done. The sunlight looked expensive. Was I paying for their peace while being told I wasn't family? A tightness formed in my chest. I searched my email again and found something I had ignored before. A forwarded message from the mortgage company, sent by my mother 2 months ago. Just sign this quickly, she had written. It was an addendum. At the time, I skimmed it. Something about administrative authority updates. I signed electronically because she said it was routine. I opened the document now, and this time I read every line. The addendum granted primary borrower authority to make structural account changes without secondary approval. My signature sat at the bottom like a quiet witness. I had given her the power to remove my visibility, but not my liability. I felt foolish, not dramatic, not angry, just foolish. How many small red flags does it take before you stop calling them misunderstandings? The law firm called again at 4:17 p.m. This time I answered. Ms. Carter? The man asked. Yes. As stated in my previous message, we represent your parents regarding the townhouse. There appears to be a dispute related to escrow verification. They've expressed concern that your recent inquiries could delay certain financial restructuring. Financial restructuring. That property is in my name too, I said calmly. Yes, he replied. However, your parents are seeking to refinance under a modified ownership arrangement. I went very still. Modified how? They intend to remove you from the title while maintaining financial continuity. Remove me. But I'm on the loan, I said. For now, he said carefully. There are mechanisms to transfer obligation if all parties cooperate. Cooperate. The room felt smaller. And if I don't? I asked. A pause. Oh, then escrow remains frozen, which may affect property status and credit implications for everyone involved. For everyone. So that was the plan. Disown me emotionally, remove me legally, keep the house, transfer the debt, and if I resisted, I'd be the one causing damage. I thanked him for the information. He seemed almost relieved. After I hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. The refrigerator hummed again. The afternoon light shifted across the floor, turning gold and then dim. My phone lit up with another message from my mother. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No explanation, no apology, just blame. I thought about every birthday dinner I paid for, every repair bill I covered quietly, every time I chose patience over confrontation. Was that love, or was it training? Have you ever realized too late that being the responsible one just means being the easiest to use? By evening, one truth was clear. This wasn't about misunderstanding paperwork. This was about control, and control had just slipped. They needed me cooperative to complete their plan. But for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted to be cooperative. I didn't reply to my mother that night. Not because I didn't have words, because I finally understood that words were part of the trap. I turned off my phone and left it on the kitchen counter. The apartment felt quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath with me. For years, my instinct had been to fix things immediately, smooth it over, call back, clarify, apologize, even when I wasn't sure what I had done wrong. That night, I did something different. I made dinner. Simple pasta, olive oil, garlic, salt. The ordinary rhythm of chopping and stirring felt grounding. The sound of the knife against the cutting board was steady, predictable, unlike people. I ate at the small table by the window. No TV, no scrolling, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I asked myself something I had avoided. What if I stopped trying to prove I was a good daughter? The idea felt disloyal at first, then it felt peaceful. The next morning, I went to work as usual. I answered emails, attended a meeting, smiled when someone asked about my weekend. I didn't mention escrow, I didn't mention attorneys. I carried it quietly. During lunch, I stepped outside and called a real estate attorney of my own. Not theirs, not someone recommended by family, someone neutral. I explained the situation calmly. A co-signed loan, removed access, attempted refinance, escrow hold. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. Did you benefit from the property in any way? No, I said. Then you have leverage, he replied. Leverage. That word felt different from obligation. He explained my options in measured tones. As long as my name remained on the loan, they could not unilaterally transfer liability. Escrow being frozen meant documentation wasn't clean. Something didn't align. If they're trying to restructure ownership without settling your interest, he said, that's a problem for them, not you. For them. I wrote that down. When I hung up, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. That afternoon, my mother called 3 times. I didn't answer. She left one voicemail. Oh, we need to handle this like adults, she said. Stop being emotional. Emotional. I replayed that word. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't accused anyone. I hadn't even refused anything yet. All I had done was ask questions. Why does calm resistance feel threatening to people who rely on your compliance? By evening, another message arrived. The attorney says this can affect our credit. Why would you do that to us? There it was, the pivot. From, you're not family to, why would you hurt your family? I set the phone down without responding. Instead, I opened a folder on my laptop and created a new document. I titled it, Timeline. I began listing dates, closing day, addendum signed, payment history, escrow freeze, attorney call, no commentary, just facts. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was documenting. And something subtle shifted inside me. I didn't need them to see my value anymore. I needed to see my boundaries. That night, I slept through until morning. No racing thoughts, no replaying conversations, just quiet. When I woke up, my phone had another voicemail, this time from my father. His voice sounded tired. Call us, he said. We didn't think you'd take it this far. Take it this far? I hadn't done anything yet. But maybe they were starting to realize I could. The official letter arrived on a Thursday. Plain white envelope, law firm return address, no personal note. I held it for a moment before opening it, feeling the weight of paper like it carried something heavier than ink. Inside was a formal request for signature, on a voluntary release of interest. They wanted me to agree to remove myself from title and waive any claim to equity, past or future, in exchange for being considered for loan reassignment pending bank approval. Considered. No guarantee. Just the possibility that if I cooperated quietly, they might attempt to refinance without me. If not, my name would remain on the debt, without ownership. I read it twice, then a third time. The language was polished, clean, almost gentle, but the message underneath was simple. Sign away your leverage. Trust us again. I sat at my kitchen table with the letter flat in front of me. Afternoon light filtered through the blinds in thin stripes across the page. My phone buzzed. My mother. I let it ring. Then she texted. "This is just paperwork. Stop being dramatic." Dramatic. The same woman who disowned me by text now needed my signature. I typed a reply, paused, then erased it. Instead, I called my attorney. He asked me to email the document immediately. 10 minutes later, he called back. "Do not sign this," he said plainly. I didn't feel surprised. "There's no refinance approval attached," he continued. "They're asking you to surrender title without secured release from liability. That's legally unbalanced." Unbalanced? "That exposes you to full risk," he added. "If they default, you're still responsible, and you'd have no claim to the property." So that was the structure. Remove me from benefit. Keep me on the hook. If I protested, I'd be hurting them. If I signed, I'd be protecting them. I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something small. I placed the unsigned letter back in its envelope, and I slid it into a drawer. Not shredded, not returned, just paused. An hour later, my father showed up at my apartment door. He hadn't visited in months. When I opened it, he looked older than I remembered, shoulders slightly bent, eyes restless. "Why are you doing this?" he asked immediately, stepping inside without waiting. "Doing what?" "Freezing everything," he said. "The bank won't move forward." "I didn't freeze anything," I replied calmly. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "They said you're refusing to cooperate." "I'm refusing to sign away ownership without protection," I said. He blinked. "That's selfish," he said softly. Selfish. I felt something inside me settle instead of flare. "For years," I said evenly, "I've paid on that loan, on time. Without argument, without recognition." "That's what family does," he replied. I nodded. "And what does family not do?" I asked. He looked confused. "Family doesn't remove access in the middle of the night," I said. "Family doesn't try to erase someone quietly." He didn't answer. Silence stretched between us. Then he said something I hadn't expected. "We thought you'd just sign. You always do." There it was. Not anger, not denial, expectation. Have you ever realized the role you've been cast in, only when you stop performing it? He left shortly after, muttering about lawyers complicating things. The door clicked shut behind him. I leaned against it for a moment, breathing in slowly. The conflict wasn't loud. There were no slammed fists, no shouting, just a clear line. And for the first time in my life, I hadn't stepped over it to keep the peace. After my father left, the apartment felt strangely lighter. Not peaceful, not happy, just clear. I didn't call my mother to argue. I didn't text my siblings to explain my side. I didn't defend myself in the family group chat when a vague message appeared that evening. Some people forget where they come from. No names, but everyone knew. I muted the thread. That was all. The next morning, I sent one email, not emotional, not defensive, to their attorney. "I will not sign any release of title without documented refinance approval removing my financial obligation in full. Please direct all further communication through my counsel." Short, clean, final. Within an hour, my mother called. Then again, then again. I let it go to voicemail. Her third message was less controlled. "You're embarrassing us," she said. "The bank thinks we're unstable. Do you know how that looks?" I sat on my couch, phone resting in my palm, listening to her voice shake. For years, I would have rushed to soothe that tone, but something inside me had shifted. Embarrassing, unstable. Those words were never about facts. They were about control. I opened my calendar and started marking dates for my own plans instead. A weekend trip I had postponed, a savings account I meant to grow, a financial consultation to separate any lingering shared expenses. If they wanted independence, I would give it fully, quietly. Have you ever noticed how stepping back feels louder to others than stepping forward? By midweek, the attorney's calls stopped coming directly to me. Everything routed through my lawyer. Escrow remained frozen. The refinance stalled. And for the first time since signing that loan, I wasn't carrying the urgency alone. My mother sent one final text that week. "You've changed." I read it twice. Yes, I had, but not in the way she meant. I hadn't become colder. I had become clearer. I wasn't punishing them. I wasn't retaliating. I was simply no longer volunteering to absorb consequences that weren't mine. That night, I sat by my window again. The same streetlight glowed across the road. The same delivery trucks passed in the distance. Nothing dramatic had happened. No victory speech, no dramatic confrontation, just silence. And in that silence, something steady grew. I wasn't their financial safety net anymore, and I wasn't their scapegoat. I was just separate. And separation, I realized, can feel like loss to people who depended on your access. The bank called my mother the following Monday. I didn't know the details at first. I only knew because she left a voicemail at 9:04 a.m. Her voice was tight. "They won't process anything without your signature. The escrow hold is still active. The refinance can't close. Call us. Urgent." Urgent, the same word their attorney used days earlier. But this time there was something different beneath it. Not authority, not expectation, pressure. An hour later, my attorney forwarded me a formal notice from the bank. Because escrow remained unresolved and documentation attempts were inconsistent, no ownership modification could proceed. My consent was legally required. In simple terms, they couldn't remove me, not quietly, not efficiently, not without negotiation. I closed the email and leaned back in my chair. There was no thrill, no satisfaction, just clarity. By noon, my father called. Not defensive, not accusing, measured. "We didn't realize the bank would block everything," he said carefully. "We thought it was simpler." Simpler? For who? I asked. Silence. Then he exhaled. "We assumed you'd cooperate." Cooperate. The same word from the attorney. It sounded smaller now, less powerful. "I've cooperated for years," I replied calmly, without being asked twice. He didn't argue. He didn't deny it. Instead, he asked something I hadn't expected. "What do you want?" The question felt unfamiliar. Not, "What will you give?" Not, "Why are you doing this?" "What do you want?" I took a breath. "I want full removal from the loan before I sign anything," I said. "In writing." Approved is not promised." Another pause. "That could take time," he said. "I'm not in a rush," I replied, and I meant it. Later that evening, my mother sent one final message. Not angry, not sharp, just short. "Let's talk when things settle." Settle. I stared at that word for a moment. For years, I had mistaken tension for responsibility, control for care, guilt for love. Now, the dynamic was exposed not because I fought loudly, but because I stepped back quietly. Escrow remained frozen until formal refinance approval began weeks later. My attorney handled the details. When the paperwork finally came through, my name was removed from the loan entirely before I signed any title release. Clean, balanced, equal, no applause, no celebration, just separation. And something subtle shifted in me that had nothing to do with property. I stopped answering calls out of fear. I stopped volunteering money to prevent discomfort. I stopped measuring my worth by how useful I was. Have you ever realized that boundaries don't end relationships? They reveal them? Months later, family gatherings felt different. Less intimate, less dependent, but more honest. No one asked me to co-sign anything again. No one assumed I would absorb the consequences of their decisions. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for approval. I was waiting for peace. If this story resonates, like it quietly did for me, consider liking the video and sharing your own experience below. Sometimes clarity begins with hearing you're not alone. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ownership of my name, my credit, my limits, and my quiet strength. What would you do? Comment below.